Welcome listeners to another episode of Pateo Radio, brought to you via Finding Voices Radio. Today is July 9, 2014, and my name is Johan Oldenkamp. We'll talk about the subject of sovereignty tonight, because my guest names herself Ingunn Sigurdsdatter, but if I'm correct, that's Norwegian for Ingunn, the daughter of Sigurd, because that's the name of her father, Sigurd. But we'll get into that along the show, I'll assume. Ingunn, please welcome to the show.
Thank you, Johan. I'm so happy to connect with you finally. And this afternoon I just actually finished listening to one of your lectures, Behind the Veil.
Oh, and one of my lectures. Okay.
Yeah, and it was so clarifying to me, so I'm glad I found you too.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Yeah, that's actually my main occupation, so to say, holy science and explaining how things are connected, how things are filling in a big picture. But in order to promote that, I have my own radio show inviting all kinds of guests, and that's why you're here now in the radio. Ingunn, can you please give a little bit of background information of what kind of life you live and what kind of being you are?
Yes, I'll try to do that. Well, I'm calling you from Norway, from our house, or as we call it, our estate, because we have declared our land, or the little piece of land that our house is on, we have declared it sovereign and independent, calling it Iceland. So there are various reasons for this, actually, and our main reason was to kind of set an intention for this piece of land, so that it may not participate any longer in all of the abuse that doesn't support the resonance of the earth and of our hearts. So that was what we wanted to do. And I've also declared myself sovereign from the state, or that is, turned in my citizenship. But all of this really began with a spiritual journey. So when I listened to your show, I really felt that all of what you said tied in very neatly with my own experiences and my own thoughts.
I can imagine that, because I also turned in my membership of the fictional state of the Netherlands, but that's something else. But can you bring the listeners a little bit up to speed with where you are and how you came to do that? Because many people have heard about sovereignty and what it means, but how did it come into your life? What was the event, or what was the trigger for this? Yeah,
what triggered me the most was the fact that the Norwegian government entered into Libya, doing aggressive acts of war, and then I really felt it within all of my being that how can the government ask us to participate in such vile and cruel actions, killing hundreds of thousands of brothers and sisters. So I really began to feel that there is something within this that doesn't resonate at all, or I felt that it's unacceptable for me to be part of the presumed social contract for this reason, basically. But also it tied into my spiritual experiences, because I had been along a path for a long time of kind of the ordinary spiritual path, where you clear out the chakras, you work with the ego, and I even had my own spiritual school, and I really felt that in order for me to become the eternal or the divine essence that I am, I also need to clear out all of the influences that hack into my energies. So while I was identifying these, I really felt that the state is the greatest energy vampire was in my life. So I was, the more I got these feelings, the more I started to read and to listen to people like Santos Bonacci, and other people who really work with sovereignty, and I began to both feel energetically and understand intellectually the concept of being free, and how we have become enslaved, really.
Indeed. Are you following what's happening to Santos at the moment, since January?
Not really.
Okay. No, he was in prison for a while, and he's fighting against the system. In his way, but I'm not sure if that's the right approach. But everybody has to find, of course, his own way. You declared your estate, the property that you own, as a sovereign state, as a sovereign estate of Niceland, and you talk about we. So maybe you did it with your husband or the other people that live there.
Yes, absolutely. I live with my partner, Mika.
Yeah.
So we are two, and that's very strengthening, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to share, because it's a difficult journey, or it has been. It was a difficult journey, and now it has become much easier because we have attained a level of clarity, inner clarity and purpose. So it's becoming easier by the day, but what we did was we actually stopped paying the banks because we realized what a global scam was being carried out by the banks. Mm-hmm. Then our house was put on foreclosure. So what we decided to do was to see how this would work out in the public domain if we made it public. So what has been what I have perceived as one of my jobs really has been to bring this to the public light and to get the newspapers to write about this, because when you shed light on such abuse, it becomes much more difficult to pull under the carpet, which is being done all the time. So there has been a public debate on these things, and I think that in Norway most people know exactly what I'm doing, which makes it harder for the government and the banks to fight back, because they are wrong in every sense of the word. So what we are doing is kind of holding space, holding ground for this process. And you know, the banks, what they actually do, because the spiritual dimension and the material dimension are so intertwined, which is important to understand. Mm-hmm. So what the banks do when they have a monopoly on the creation of money, and they also own the product that money is, when they oblige us to use their money, is that the price is rise all the time. So the market value of our houses is below, or it's above a level where you can ever own a house without taking loan in the banks, which means that you will forever have to get onto the treadmill and work and pay taxes for 25 years until the loan is paid. So this match between the governments and the banks is kind of a match made in heaven, and that explains why the governments turn the blind eye to what the banks are doing. So what happens is that through the scam perpetrated by the banks, our creative energy is brought to its knees, and the banks and the governments own our powers of manifestation and our possibility to express ourselves as the divine essences that we are. So I'm a mom. I have 3 children, but now I'm 50, so they are grown up. But I can see how much they struggle just to find a place to live, because you can't get a place to live. You can't live peacefully on Mother Earth without working and without being a slave to the banks and to the government. No. So what I'm wanting to do by my actions is showing an example of how to take your life back, and how it is possible to return the land to Mother Earth, because it really belongs to Mother Earth.
Indeed it does, it fully does. Yeah, I think you're really brave, you and your husband. Because I was in the same situation, that they were selling all my property, not my house, because I rented the house. But I also brought it in the open, and I invited about 200 people he was standing in front of my house with cameras, and the sale never went through because they didn't dare to anymore.
Wow.
So that's the same experience you have. But for the listeners, Ingunn, can you tell me what happened on February 22? You declared the estate to be sovereign, and was that before or after the foreclosure by the banks?
No, it's the foreclosure is being carried out as we speak. So I think that it all depends on our inner strength and determination, because we stand as poles. and I really, at this point, I find it amusing and entertaining and really interesting to see what will happen. And
But you have confidence that it will, because you have 3 children, you say, so they live there too?
No, only my son. He will be 18 years old soon.
Okay. So just you and your husband might have some inconvenience when they
repercussions, yeah. because if they sell the house, we lose everything, so we have nothing at all whatsoever.
Right.
And when I really had the feeling that I was because I told you I had the spiritual school, and when I was teaching, I got the feeling that this is all about trust. And how much do I trust my own essence, my own spiritual energy, my spirit? Do I really trust that I have powers of manifestation, or don't I? So I kind of got the premonition that life would test me in these matters. And then when the issue of the house came up, I just knew, okay, this is something that I have to do, because it felt like an urge, as if my spirit was telling me that, okay, this is your calling, go girl. So what I have learned, and we really gave up everything. I gave up my job. So now I do what most people would term crappy jobs. I wash houses, but I also do healing and clairvoyant readings, which I love. But we practically have very little income, really, and we've taken this as far as anyone can, I think. But what's happening is that life has become more wonderful than it's ever been before.
Yeah, that's the blessing. I went through the same process myself, so I fully understand what you say. I also gave up my well-paid job and my easy life because I wanted to, like you do, to wake up my spirit and to do what feels good inside and not what feels good in the wallet, so to say, in the money part. And then you actually turn into a totally new direction for your life, and I think that's our true path. But most people are not, don't dare to do that because that's too confronting and maybe too inconvenient, or they see all kinds of dangers. Well, there is actually no danger at all. It's just a totally different road. Yes,
it is, and wow, it makes me so happy that you've done the same thing. I didn't know that. It's so cool. Wow.
Yeah, but I didn't know it of you either. Otherwise, it might be more. Yeah, but it's really good that you are on this program. Somebody told me that I really should invite you, and I was happy that you said yes. But now I understand why. You feel like a kind of sister to me because you do the same things and go through the same awakening process, and that's why we are talking now, I think.
Me too. But I've also discovered so many interesting things. Because what's taken my time, or some of my time lately, has been kind of to unravel the matrix that has enslaved us, because there has been an enslavement of humanity, definitely. Mm-hmm. And it's been consistent, and it's easy to also identify. And it's interesting because when I heard you speak about the fire and the elements, pieces kind of came into place for me, because we've been touring Norway on very small scale, I must say, but in a beautiful way. Speaking in some cities for an audience of 30 people, 40 people, which is nice because these are controversial issues. But what I've understood is that the prime motor behind our enslavement has been the Catholic Church, because it has wanted to own the souls, or to be the guardian of the souls and our spiritual and material energy, because the Pope has always claimed to be the administrator of God's creation, right? And when I was younger and heard about these things, I thought that, okay, but that has to do with Catholicism, but it really doesn't. It has to do with ownership. And what I've come to understand is that the fierce resistance that the Pope met in the northern countries had to be met with harsh retaliation. So when you spoke about the fire, I had, during our trip, I really had the feeling that the fire has been trapped within the mountains. and the fiery spirit of the Nordic people has been, a carpet has been put on top of it. And when this fire is awakened, then you can really speak about the light from the north, or the
northern light.
Yeah, I think it will give birth to a very powerful reaction from the people, because in the Nordic countries, we've always been told that we live within the most privileged corners of the world. But as a matter of fact, we also live among the most apathetic people you can ever find, most asleep, and I'm so sorry to say so, but my fellow Norwegian brothers and sisters have been put to sleep through various means. So I think that what we do is very, very important. We are rising up, taking back our powers, fighting the dominion that has lasted for millennia, really, all the way since Babylon and Hammurabi, and I do get the feeling of being part of, or tapping into a collective movement that is really taking us towards something so much better.
Indeed, and that's why we are doing this, you and me and many others. I'm writing at the moment an e-book about holy science and everything, but yesterday I was writing about Akhenaten and what happened after him, and I think that the powers that came into Rome, sorry, my mobile phone is ringing,
Yes, it was.
should have shut it off, that the powers who came into position happened after Akhenaten was probably murdered, and his successors were not able to carry on his way of thinking, because I think he was really spiritual gifted and he understood how the universe is really working. But the priesthood did not like it, because during his reign all their powers were taken away, and that's what they didn't want. So after he was removed, they took over, and since then they ever ruled. And when Cleopatra was defeated, then they simply moved to Rome, and ever since the priesthood is controlling this world from Rome. So I think it goes back a long time, at least 3,500 years.
Yes.
And it's good that we are now trying to understand what really happened and how the matrix was created and how the whole idea of ownership and control is working. So I think we should use the rest of this broadcast to go into that subject and share our ideas about that, Sigurd, Ingunn.
Yeah. Yes, that's good. I would like that too. And when I listened to your speech today about the elements, I also realized that when the Pope claims jurisdiction over the sea, he also, or the Vatican also takes ownership over one of the elements that are so essential, and that rules the emotions among others. So my understanding is that the Vatican established a jurisdiction, the maritime jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
It actually means to fear the sea. Temere il mare. And this was done through ceremony, which is being repeated every year. Actually, every summer the Pope travels to Venice to renew his marital vows with the sea. And this was the basis for what we call the Holy See, even if sea is written with two E's. So when the Vatican found a way of controlling the souls, because you could always define them as lost at sea, we also came under the jurisdiction of the Roman Curia, and we enter into this jurisdiction every time we enter into commerce, which is all the time actually. So we are all the time living in the maritime jurisdiction created by the Vatican, and we are told that we have constitutions in our nations, but the law of the land, as I see it, never really enters into action. It never applies really. So my understanding is that to operate in the maritime jurisdiction, we also had to become corporate entities, because this is the law of commerce, and to operate within commerce you must be a corporation. So then our birth certificates became corporate, bills of lading. So we are just cargo, and the fact that we can be traded and that the human resource can be exploited to the extent that we see when we work all the time, pay 90% taxes, and everything can be sold. Our biomass, chemical trials can be carried out on us. We really have no rights. This was also one of my main reasons for doing the things I did. The fact that we have become commodity, and that's all that we are, the human being.
Yeah, I can fully say understand what you say, Ingunn. But I think the human resource is a fiction. Most people believe in that fiction, and that's why there are resources. But no human is really a resource. Every human is a spiritual being that has a physical experience, and that spiritual being can never be considered a resource in any commercial activity whatsoever. But most people have no idea about this, and they allow themselves to be treated like resources and like a number, and that they do have to pay all those ridiculous taxes, and that they do believe that a state is a legal institution, but it's a commercial fiction. Every state is a company, and that company is registered, and that company it's all about money, making money, and keeping control over everything via the money. So how do you see this, Ingunn?
Absolutely, and just to add to your last point, then I'll return to what you first said, is that my understanding is really also that all of what we think of as nations, they are operating within bankruptcy and state of emergency, really. So what we are told to be nations, we are told that we live within the nation, so beautiful. This is all fictitious. This is all fairy tale, just to pacify us and to make us comply with what we regard as the customs of the land, and to kind of herd us into a modern format of slavery. But when it comes to the spiritual side, that's what is definitely most important for me also. And what you just said, it's so beautiful, because as I see it, we are all expressions of the divine spark, and we carry our flavor, our colors, the unique essence that each and one of us are. This is what we bring to the earth, and it's so exciting. It's so exciting to see what happens when we dare to express our uniqueness and our purpose, sense of purpose, and to be the creators that we are. And what we see is that, my understanding is that we are the Illuminati, we are the capstone in the pyramid. When we awaken and become the creative essence, then things fall into place and the pyramid of controls just collapses. So
Indeed. I think everything is constructed in this matrix as on basis of how things are really working. I think there is truly a kind of spiritual pyramid or hierarchy that is really well structured and it's really well organized, as I explain in my book. But in order to keep us in control, they copied it. They make a kind of illegal copy of the spiritual pyramid and put it here in the physical reality, and that pyramid is now trying to control us. So there's nothing wrong with the pyramid structure. There's everything wrong with using it for control instead of using it for ascension, because that's how the real pyramid works, so to say, to go to a higher understanding, to a broader understanding, a higher consciousness. So that's what I would like to comment on what you're saying. So that's my understanding, Ingunn.
And it's that's beautiful perspective, because I can share it. I also think that we go through a period, we go through learning, we go through cycles of learning. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
And we experience all of the archetypes, and we are at one point all of the sounds of creation, and we experience lives of having access to just one of the elemental forces. And as my understanding is that in this lifetime I listened to you today and you inspired me. So we are in the 13th number, isn't it? Where we become the spiraling up.
Yes, it is.
That's how I feel it, and I feel that part of what I'm doing personally these days is to collect together all of the energies that I am, all that is me, dispersed in various lives and experiences and various left behind in various places. I'm collecting it, gathering it, bringing it back to source or into my essence, and it's time for compression, as I see it.
Yeah, the way I describe that process is making yourself whole again. WOHOLE.
Yeah.
Become a holy person with W and double L, because that's how I consider holy, referring to the whole. So bringing all your energies into one unity, that's making yourself a whole person. It's healing yourself, making yourself heal or whole.
And for me, becoming or turning in my citizenship was very important for realigning or opening up my crown chakra, because it was as if my crown chakra was very infested by the energies of government. So that was definitely becoming. It was a necessary step in the healing of my energies to rid myself of these cords, so to speak.
And how did you do that, Ingunn? How did you return your citizenship?
Oh, well, I did it with much bravado. So I took my passport, and because I thought that if I do these actions silently, nobody will ever care, and it will not have any bearing or any significance whatsoever. So I need to step right into the bullseye, or where there is action, and become visible. And many people say that they live their lives beneath the radar. I think that's a very unsafe place, because then you are victimizing yourself. But when you step into the limelight, that's a very safe spot. So I went to the mayor of my city and I said, look, this is my passport. I'm returning it to you. So I'm not any longer part of the social contract of the state.
How did the mayor respond?
She's a sweet person. She's a girl, a woman. So she wasn't prepared to tackle me with any hardships, and it wasn't natural for her either. But her colleagues afterwards, I think, scolded her. But she was open. But the newspapers caught on to this, or I did bring a journalist with me.
Yeah.
Just kind of creating an event to create waves
Yeah, but you bring it in the open, so that means that it has to be broadcasted or at least brought into a bigger attention. So it's good to bring journalists or your own camera crew, whatever.
So important. I was going to tell you something that I just did spiritually. I did something called an aura transformation. Have you heard of that?
I can understand what you say, but I've not done it. So maybe you can explain what it is and what you felt with it.
I didn't know that was an option, but so I just did it. I just learned about it, and then I did it, and it turned out to be a beautiful thing. And the idea is that we nourish ourselves from our auric field. It's our food, really. Replenishes us, and the aura that we carry with us has been with us always for many lives, and it's been it carries with it a lot of spiritual agreements, contracts, and karma. So most of us live from a soul level within the old auric field, and the soul is connected to karma. So there has arisen a possibility to say goodbye to the old aura and create a new one, which doesn't carry with it any of these projections from others or spiritual agreements or contracts, really. So what we had to do was to take back all of the energies and from all of the experiences in our lifetimes, and ask the energies to reunite within the body, and then also to invite all of the planets to align harmoniously, so that all astrological constellations and numerological premises for our lives would fall away, in order for us to live from spirit instead of soul. So what I felt was that this brought me onto the earth 100%. So my feeling is that now all of me is here on earth. There are no loose parts, no hanging ends out in the galaxies, but all is here within this body, this embodiment.
Wow. So you freed yourself energetically. Now you're fully concentrated in the being that you are right now.
That's my intention.
Yeah.
And that's my experience. That's my take on it.
Yeah, great. I wish I could see you in the eyes. When I look people in the eyes, I can see how much light there is inside, and then you can see that especially with young children, when there are not too much chemicals inside and they're still pure, then you can see really sparkling light coming out of their eyes.
Oh, you can see that?
Yeah, I can sometimes see that. And on the other hand, people who are really caught up in the matrix, their eyes are so dark. There is no light coming out. It's just the color but there's no energy coming out. So I think their spirits are really sleeping or maybe even absent. But people who have an awakened spirit, their eyes are shining, and maybe they also create a kind of halo around their head.
Yeah. That's our Christ, isn't it? Within the third eye.
Mm-hmm.
When the light is awoken within the third eye, physically also, it's what's it called? Piezo electric, isn't it?
It has to do with the pineal gland that's functioning much better than in most people.
Exactly. So the pineal gland is activated. We become radiant, really, because light is being produced. And it's because it's a resin, an oil is being secreted, which is the Christos, isn't it? Because Christ means oil, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what it's all about, this physical reality, to create that kind of elixir, that life elixir.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy Grail.
That's indeed the holy Grail, because you can see the pineal gland as a kind of cup where we can create that special elixir.
It's so beautiful, really, when we remember these things and experience them in our lives. Everything changes, don't they?
Yeah, they fully changed, but what I find really difficult, maybe you have that too, is that the people around me, they are not that far yet, so they seem not to be interested in it. They seem to be preoccupied with other things, like, for instance, the football game and or the work or the everything that is actual at the moment, but it's not really important at all.
No,
how do you deal with that? Because you also have a mission, I think, to bring this light to the world, but most people in your environment might not be too interested in it.
What we hear all the time is this indirectly, how will you save us? So we can see that there is a tendency to search for an outer authority and not really trust your own inner authority. So when we tour, we've just made a tour speaking about the matrix of oppression. And then people often ask us, so how do you intend to resolve the problems of the world? What's your suggestion to a global perspective, or to how can you implement a new economic system? And as I see it, that will never be my job. I'm just one person, and we are individual people. And as I see it, the only thing we can do is to assume full responsibility for all of our actions and our words. And when we do, we also automatically align with the laws of the universe, which, among others, says that you can never harm the free will of another person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So automatically, when we align with these laws and assume responsibility in the deepest sense, harmony is generated on a grassroots level within your or among your neighbors and among. So as I see it, we need to begin from the root, from the grassroots with each person. Each person has to assume individual responsibility and not look for the saviors.
Yeah, and exactly. So what you're doing is I think the ultimate empowerment, because you tell people and yourself too that it is all about what you can do in your life, and taking responsibility for everything that you do or not do, or say or not say, because that's what you do. That's your responsibility. And from there it will change. But people, the questions you get on your lecture, and I recognize them because I get them too, is the opposite of empowerment, because they try to bring you down. They try to tell you, you cannot make a difference in this world. The world is going as it is, so accept it, go along with the stream. And that's the opposite of what you're really saying, because no, we can step out of that stream and we can be our own stream, maybe small, but if we all do that, then the big stream will stop. And that will be the big change.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And it also comes, for me, it comes with the tremendous recommendation, because what I experience in my life is that all doors open when we let the control go and leave our life to our spirits, or allow spirits to live through our bodies and our actions. Magic comes into our lives, really. And in my case, I had no idea how I would survive or how life would be. And when I gave up the control of the ego, then doors opened that I could never have imagined. I could not ever have imagined them in my wildest dreams. So if magic and wonder is to come into our lives, then we also need to step out of the matrix of control, because it's keeping us within stagnation. Our lives become stagnant.
Yeah.
And dead.
Exactly. That's also what I experienced. But control is everywhere. The society is not only control, but also the way we live, the way we treat our body. For instance, how we deal with what people call sickness. We want to control everything. We want to be in control over all details. But the opposite is what really brings us a happy life, is let it go and accept the way life is going, the way life is rolling, and not try to put our pre-imagined ideas, pre-imagined goals there, because then we cannot allow that the dynamics of the natural dynamics to come into our life. So we need first to let go of that illusion, that fiction of control, before we can actually become really free. And I think that's the key word here. That's also on your website, I think, the word freedom, because we can only be freedom when we give up the fiction of control. The moment we do that, then we become truly free.
And it's for me, it's also about fun, because how can our lives become fun? Because I think that we are born to be joyous.
Mm-hmm.
My experience is that joy is what is beneath all of the layers of fear, because there are so many layers of fear that have to be ripped off, and they don't come off before we want them to. So if we cling to them, we'll never access that joy that we really are. Because when you are stripped naked of that fear, it's as if peace and happiness is our essence. That is who we are. So when I was a child, I remember I had so many plans and I loved doing things, being creative, doing stuff, going places, making things with my hands, reading. And then, little by little, schooling is stripping off of us all of our individuality, all of our happiness, really. And as I see it, it is about unschooling and getting the happiness back, finding the happiness that has been hidden beneath all of those layers of conformity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because control is actually related to fear. We need to have control because we are afraid of something. At the moment we stop being afraid and we let go of that fear, then we don't need control anymore. And when we do that, then joy, then pleasure, then fun can come out. I do a lot of work with several methods of astrology, and nearly in all of my own signs, the key word is fun or pleasure or joy.
Yeah.
So for me it's very important to be joyous and have fun, because otherwise I'm not doing my work good. So also in my lectures that was the case. In the beginning, when I was a kind of referent and I tried to, or a priest, I tried to tell everybody that the bank system is corrupt and all the things that we just talked about. And people didn't like my presentations too much because it was heavy on their minds and it was not really fun. So it took me a few years, and then my lectures became much more, with jokes and nice examples and much more light. And then I really became able to reach out to much more people.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
And it's all about the people, because you say that the people around you are trying to pull us down, and not in a conscious way, but yes. But also when you raise your own vibration, new people come into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are fun to be with, who are a little bit crazy, just like us. and it's as if Kate of Gaia, you would have heard her.
Yeah, she was my guest also a couple of times.
Oh, she's helped me so much. Her shows, I really can recommend them. And she said something that was very important for me, because she said that your intention lives within one dimension, and that will be the dimension that helps you. So the higher your intention becomes, the better the help gets. And that's the vibratory response that matches your intention, kind of, is what decides what comes into your life. And that has been my experience also. The more, because it is also as if, for me, I think that my point of departure is, what can my soul tolerate? Can I live with all of this compromise when I am on earth? Because it hurts. It hurts for the soul to go along with compromises that doesn't match your inner feeling at all. So people ask me, but how can you do the things you do when there are no solutions and when you don't know what's going to happen? But for me, it was more about stopping doing the things that hurt the soul, not go along with them, and then just see what happens. Because to me, it was unacceptable to be part of the paradigm that we enter into by birth.
Exactly. How can you do it to your brother, even if your brother is living in Libya or it doesn't really matter where? We cannot be part of that, so I fully agree. But most people, for them, it's so difficult to do that. They shut off their soul and they become a kind of numb because they cannot feel that anymore. It's too painful. So they just imagine it's not there, or that it is good that it happens, or whatever reason they try to think of. But if you truly listen to your soul, it's bleeding. It's really painful.
Yes, it is. But it also comes. You also arrive at a place where the indignation awakens, and where you really can't stand, where the matrix of control becomes so ridiculous. When you really understand the workings of the matrix, it's so ridiculous and such an offense to your intellect. So if you are to keep thinking and not shut off your mind, then it is, as I said, also impossible to get along with the premises that most people live under, because it's so you can't think freely. The price you pay for being in the matrix is to stop thinking.
Exactly, and that's why the matrix is there, because it's also a test. We started this program with saying that everything is a test. Well, the matrix is a test too. Life is a test, but matrix too. If you really want to be a human being, then you cannot be in the matrix, because it's violating all your, everything that makes you a human. So it's either you have to sell your soul to the devil, so to say, then you can stay there. But if you refuse to do that, then there is no place for anybody in the matrix. Nobody can feel at home there any longer. So then you have to get out one way or the other.
Because that sums up your point. That was very good summing up of the point. Really, do you want to live as a prostitute or don't you? Because it's really the question.
Yeah, it's true. Most people don't like those words because it's hard. But I was trying to provoke the professors here at the universities and told them that they were mental prostitutes, because they sell out their way of thinking into a system that is fraudulent and is not true. And the paradigms are all biased. So they should leave that dogma and become free thinkers. But provocation.
What did they say?
Oh, they just cut the communication with me because they think I was too rude or too harsh. But I think it's absolutely true. But sometimes the truth is too hard to accept. So I have to find a more easier way to reach out to them. But it's not something that I'm really good at.
But do you still work at the university?
No. I quit my job. I was a professor, not at the university level, but a level below that. But in the Netherlands we have different levels. I quit my job and I decided to sell my house and everything in order to become truly free. And since then, I also took all my money from the bank. They were not happy with that, because every euro they have from me, they can give it out 10 times to other people. So actually, I took 10 times more money than I actually got from them, from their perspective.
Yes. Exactly.
So their faces were really long when they had to put all money on the table. But it was my money, so they had to do it. And since then, I'm living from that. I'm out of the system. I'm not registered anymore. I also gave up my legal person. It has a number in this country, and I declared it not to be living, or not to exist anymore. And from there, I decided that I cannot serve two masters. One master is the nature, or you can also call it God, and the other master is the state, or maybe the papacy, or the Vatican, because that's maybe it even goes further. But you have to choose whether you want to be in one of those, serving one of those two masters. You cannot serve them both. and I clearly decided that I will not serve the other master anymore, and only serve my own true master, which I call gods, but any other name is good too. And that was my coming out, so to say. And since then, I understand what you say, because from that moment on, you feel like you're liberated. Something is lifted from you, from your shoulders or from your head or whatever. You described it as from your crown chakra. But something is gone, and then you are more directly connected with everything. And I experienced it as a really powerful spirit period. I had it last November.
Yeah, that's congratulations. I changed my name also. I got rid of my old name, which doesn't belong to me, and which is proof of the fraudulent actions actually committed by the state and the banks.
Yeah.
Because they own our names, it's their intellectual property, right? As well as our birth certificates. It's not ours, so we commit fraud when we use them.
Yeah, but because your old one was Rosalind, or
yes.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but now you made it to Sigurdsdatter. That's how I started the broadcast.
Exactly, and the daughter of my father. So it's not registered in any place, because no registration will ever happen again of my living essence. No. And when I knew that I wanted to change my name, but I couldn't find the proper name, so I didn't know what the name would be. And I tried out various names, and I felt how does that feel, and it didn't feel good. And then I found my name, and that was really as if a burden was lifted from my energies, because all of my body became happy. I could just feel the lightness and the response, the body saying thank you for taking away that heavy veil that we've been carrying all this time.
Yeah.
So the on an energetic level, we know so well.
It's a kind of rebirthing, huh?
Yeah, but even the head doesn't know, our energy knows. And the feeling of relief that went through me was just amazing when I changed my name. And it sits so well with me. I can feel that it sits well. And if ever someone suggests that I use my old name, kind of make me sick almost to think about that, because it's unthinkable. I will never use it again.
Okay, great.
Because it was never mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what is also fortunate for you is that your husband, I think his name was Michael, if I heard it correctly. Yes. You're on the same page, and that you can help each other to go through this process, because if you don't have anybody in your environment, then it's really, everybody thinks you're totally nuts.
Yeah.
So, but if your partner is there, then it's a big support, I think.
Absolutely true, and I've been so grateful. I've been thanking the universe a million times. I've been so grateful for Michael coming into my life, because I'm not sure if I would ever have found the strength without him, and life becomes so easy when we are two people on the same wavelength and sharing a love that really defines our lives together. Mm-hmm. So I was very lucky being supported by such love that I feel for him, and I can only give my thanks of all of my heart. So grateful that this happened to me, and there was a point when because I was divorced, and I was thinking that I wanted to have a partner, and I just didn't seem to find any that suited me, or that was on the same page. And then there came a point when I said to myself that, okay, my life path is more important for me than having a partner, so I don't need one. I'd rather stay on my present path. I will stay on my soul path, or my intended path. And even if that means that I'm too weird to have a partner, it's okay. Because I will never, I really thought that I'll never find anyone who can share this path with me. And then 1 week, maybe 2 weeks after I said this to myself, bam, then Mikael appears. Like miracle. So I gave it up, saying bye-bye, ciao. And then when I relaxed on this point, there was an opening and the universe sends in Mikael.
It's also like an example of letting go control. You let it go, and from that moment on, the energies could flow freely, and they brought you Michael.
Exactly.
And you were brought to Michael too, because I think he must be equally happy with you as you are with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had the same experience. He was also telling himself that, okay, so I'm beyond being able to find a girlfriend who can live with my eccentricities that most people regard as eccentricities.
Mm-hmm.
That is his life path or his views of the world. And then he found me, and it was like, bam, okay, we clicked. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It makes my heart smile, so to say. Yeah. Yeah, I think most people who are listening to this broadcast are in a similar situation. They have to choose between staying true to your life path or the convenience of somebody who's there with you. And yeah, I think when you truly listen to your inner voice, then you know which decision you should take, and that's one you took. And the reward is really paradoxically, I'm not sure if that's correct English, but the paradox of that right choice is that you also get what you wanted, but only after you let it go.
And not only do you get what you wanted, but you get something much better than you had imagined.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, that's the reward of the cosmos.
Yes.
They know what is good for you, but when you try to somehow determine exactly what you want, then it's not really working. So just have faith in the justice of the wisdom of the universe, and then everything will be exactly as it is good for you. Great. Yeah, Ingunn, the time flew by. I think it was really inspiring for me and hopefully listeners too to listen to you, because I think you're very brave. To hear what you've done. You're still not sure how the story will end, but I think it doesn't touch you anymore. I think you're somehow beyond it, and you found something much more treasurable than a piece of land and a house on it.
That's so true. I'm very excited to see what will happen. I have no idea whatsoever. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see when things might be interesting for the listeners. Then you're always welcome to come back to the show and tell what happened and how you dealt with it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ingunn, for being my guest. I enjoyed it very much. Listeners, thank you very much for tuning in to Pateo Radio. I'm not sure if there is next week a live broadcast, because my guest who was scheduled postponed it again. So I'm trying to get another guest, and otherwise you can maybe listen to a rerun of a previous broadcast. So thank you all, and hopefully you tune in next time to Pateo Radio via Finding Voices Radio. Goodbye for now.